You're more afraid of becoming useless as you get older than any ancient human ever needed to be. Here's proof. For most of human history, almost nobody grew old. Then, around 30,000 years ago, something changed. The number of adults surviving into old age jumped fivefold. Not 10%, not double. 5 times more people living past 30 than in the periods before. For context, that's like your entire town suddenly having 5 times more grandparents than it did last year. Overnight, no medicine, no hospitals, no pensions, just more old people everywhere, all at once, in a world built around hunting large, dangerous animals with sharpened sticks. Something made that possible. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a lucky mutation either. It was a decision, repeated by thousands of small groups, that changed what it meant to grow old. But how do we even know this? Fair question. We're talking about people who died 30,000 years ago. No records, no birth certificates, no obituaries. So how do scientists know exactly how old people were when they died, and how many of them made it to old age? The answer comes from bones, specifically from a 2004 study by researchers Kasperi and Lee, which examined 768 fossil specimens. They tracked the ratio of older adults to younger adults across hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, period by period, site by site. At every stage before modern humans, that ratio crept up slowly. A little more here, a little more there, then it exploded. And what that sudden jump reveals is one of the strangest transitions in our entire species history. Let's go back further, before modern humans. Before that five-fold jump, let's talk about the Neanderthals. Neanderthals hunted up close, not with bows, not from a distance. They used thrusting spears, which meant getting within arm's reach of an animal that could kill you in one hit. We know this because of a site in Neumark Nord, Germany, dated to about 120,000 years ago. Researchers found 2 fallow deer skeletons with spear perforations, direct physical proof of close-range thrusting spear hunting. Not a guess, not a theory. The holes are still in the bones, exactly where the spear went in. This wasn't a distant, safety-first strategy. This was hand-to-horn combat, over and over, for every meal. Now picture doing that job at 55 years old. Slower reflexes, weaker grip, a joint that aches every morning. In a hunt where the animal is inches away and one mistake means you don't walk home. There's no version of that job that gets easier with age. Group A, Neanderthals. Their fossil record shows a strikingly low ratio of older adults to younger adults. Old age, in the Neanderthal world, was rare. Group B, the modern humans who came after them. Their ratio was dramatically higher. More elders, more often, more consistently. Same planet, same predators, same tools, more or less. But one group cracked something the other never did. And there's one skeleton that shows exactly how brutal the gap between those two groups really was. His name, to researchers, is Shanidar 1. But that's not even the strangest part. Shanidar 1 was found in a cave in modern-day Iraq. He lived somewhere between 50,000 and 40,000 years ago. He was a Neanderthal male, somewhere between 35 and 45 years old when he died. Here's what his bones tell us. His left eye socket shows trauma consistent with blindness. His right leg was crippled, likely leaving him with a permanent limp. His right arm wasn't just injured, it was atrophied down to almost nothing, likely amputated at some point in his life. Picture him, half blind, dragging one leg, one arm gone or useless. Every step across uneven frozen ground a slow, deliberate effort. Now picture the world he lived in. Ice Age cold, thrusting spears, close combat with animals that fight back. A world where hunting meant survival, and survival meant hunting, day after day, with no days off. Shanidar 1 could not hunt. He probably couldn't forage much either. And yet, he lived for years after his injuries. Years. That doesn't happen by accident. Someone fed him. Someone brought him back to shelter. Someone chose again and again to keep a man alive who could give almost nothing back in return. Now hold that image, a crippled, blind man being carried through an ice age by people who had every evolutionary incentive to leave him behind. That's not weakness, that's a decision, and it's about to get flipped completely upside down. Here's the twist. We assume ancient hunting was a young man's game. Strong, fast, male. That's the image every documentary sells you. It wasn't. In 2018, archaeologists in Willamiapacha, Peru, uncovered a 9,000-year-old grave. Inside, a teenage girl, 17 to 19 years old, buried with a full big game hunting toolkit. Spear points, scrapers. Tools built for taking down large animals, not small game. That discovery triggered a wider search. A meta-analysis of 107 burial sites across the Americas found 11 women and 16 men buried with hunting tools. Run the math. That's roughly 30 to 50% of ancient big game hunters who may have been women. Not a footnote. Not a rare exception. Nearly half. So the story wasn't strong young men hunt, everyone else waits. The story was Hunting was a group effort, built on skill, memory, and cooperation, not just raw muscle. A 17-year-old girl with the right training could outperform a stronger, untrained adult twice her size. And that changes everything about Shanidar 1. He wasn't kept alive out of sentiment. He was kept alive because his group had already figured out something the Neanderthals, on average, never fully locked in. Survival isn't just about who can throw a spear. It's about who can plan the hunt, who remembers where the herds go, who teaches the 17-year-old girl how to aim. This pattern goes back even further than Neanderthals. At Kangera South, Kenya, cut marks on gazelle and wildebeest bones, dated to nearly 2 million years ago, sit in positions a scavenger could never reach. Early humans weren't picking at leftovers. They were hunting large animals directly, almost 2 million years before Shanidar 1 ever drew breath. And at Homo erectus sites in Upper Galilee, Israel, flint quarries dating back roughly 500,000 years were built deliberately along elephant migration routes. That's not opportunism. That's planning, generation after generation, long before anyone called it a strategy. Old age wasn't a burden the group waited out. Across almost 2 million years, it slowly became a resource worth protecting. So what does this mean for you today? You live in a world that quietly tells you your value expires. Get older, get slower, get replaced. Miss a promotion at 45 and it feels like the tribe left without you. Fall behind on the newest app or trend and suddenly you feel like Shanidar 1, dragging a bad leg through the snow. But the humans who actually made it, the ones whose bones show up in that 5-fold jump, didn't win by out-hunting everyone forever. They won by building groups where a blind man with one arm was still worth carrying home. Where a teenage girl could hold a spear next to a grown man. Where knowledge and cooperation mattered as much as speed and strength. You're not more disposable than a Neanderthal at 50 with a crippled leg. You're the opposite. You live in the version of humanity that decided experience was worth protecting. The fear you carry about becoming too old to matter? That fear is newer than you think. It's not written into your biology. It's written into a modern culture that forgot what Shanidar 1's people already knew almost 40,000 years ago. And the humans who survived long enough to pass it down to you didn't survive by outrunning that fear. They survived by building something stronger than it. A group willing to carry the ones who could no longer carry themselves. Would you have survived long enough to grow old back then? Let me know below. Subscribe if you want more of this. See you in the next one.